In the Pfister home, ours is not a decorator Christmas tree. Our tree doesn't have a theme or a color scheme. It isn't tastefully done. No, our Christmas tree is beautiful in a homespun, eclectic sort of way. The angel on top has a crossed-stitched plastic skirt, very DIY. It was a gift back in the 90s. It's not something I would ever choose, but it's what we have, and so we use it. The ornaments vary wildly, a bizarre mishmash of beloved baubles we've acquired along the way. Macaroni creations from when the kids were little dangle alongside Waterford crystal and beautiful hand-painted glass globes. Harry Potter figurines commingle with a 2014 Texas State Capitol commemorative. As hodgepodge as the ornaments are, even more unusual is the music our family listens to as we decorate the tree. While many families reach for the Christmas classics, the Bing Crosby, the carols, and the like, not so the Pfisters. We play one album, and only one album, every year. The 12 Yats of Christmas by Benny Grunch and the Bunch. Yes, that's right, the 12 Yats of Christmas. I'm guessing you've never heard of it. Allow me to elaborate. Benny Grunch and the Bunch is a New Orleans-based band that performs satirical songs about the city. The 12 Yats of Christmas is a hilarious collection of novelty songs, parodies of traditional Christmas tunes that lovingly lampoon the culture and characters of New Orleans. A Yat, Y-A-T, is a native New Orleanian who speaks with a distinctive New Orleans accent. The term derives from the common expression, "Where you at, darling?" which is another way of asking, "How are you?" Ya at is contracted and nounified to become yat, a colloquialism for anyone who, talks like that. It's not Cajun or Southern, as one might expect. Strangely, it sounds like something from Brooklyn or the Bronx. Linguists attribute this similarity to the particular amalgamation of immigrants, Italians, Germans, Irish, Eastern Europeans, that simultaneously flooded both of these port cities in the late 19th century. The difference being that while New York emigres were met with the curt cadence of New England, in New Orleans, the melting pot of language and culture simmered on a Southern stove, lending the whole thing a sort of drawl, like this. After church, we're gonna have Christmas over by my mom and them's. That's how it goes. Now, lest you think I am a horrible person and very unpriestly who enjoys mocking a people's way of speech, which admittedly is kind of fun. I grew up in New Orleans. My husband and I met there. These are my people. I am part Yat. I am allowed. And it was our love of New Orleans that generated this goofy tradition in the first place. The Christmas after we moved away up to North Carolina, lonesome for the Crescent City and needing a laugh, Benny Grunch came to the rescue, filling our ears with the familiar twang of home. 5 years later, in the aftermath of Katrina, this ridiculous music meant all the more. My children, who are now young adults, have never really lived in New Orleans, and they don't understand most of the 12 Yat references, but they don't seem to mind. Instead of humming a partridge in a pear tree, they sing 3 French breads, 2 Jack's recipe, and a crawfish we caught in Araby. This random record holds a little piece of our family's story, which is their story too. And this tradition of ours, it isn't particularly traditional or reverent, but it's fun, And so we laugh at the music and at ourselves. And for a week or two, I remember how much it is to talk like that. And Phil plays along, and the kids roll their eyes. And it's Christmas. It's Christmas in Texas. And the Fisters from New Orleans do their part to keep Austin weird. Every family, all of us, is different. How we gather, what we value, with what and with whom we celebrate this season is as varied and as complex as we are. We each have our own story, our own melting pot of influences, memories, and customs. And every year when Christmas rolls around again, we set our pot of Christmases past to simmer on the stove of Christmas present. And we incorporate into that stew the truth of this moment right now. Some Christmases are magical, like with a new love or a brand new baby, full of hope and possibility, like when our loved ones are all gathered close and the job is good and health is strong and everything seems right with the world. And some Christmases are hard, when life is strained and harsh, when it is not something we would ever choose, and it seems nothing is as it should be. Most Christmases are a mishmash of both. Hope and happiness dangle alongside the mundane and the broken. Great love commingles with anxiety and loneliness. On that first Christmas, all those many years ago, Joseph and Mary arrived in Bethlehem, each with their own story. Joseph, descendant from the house of David, of an ancient royal lineage, is a remnant of a once great dynasty. But oh, how times have changed. Whatever influence that might have garnered, long forgotten. He is a working man, a carpenter by trade. Mary is the daughter of a devout and faithful Jewish family, but she is visited by an angel in the night who sets her life on a strange and unexpected path. She, just barely a woman, pregnant and unmarried. On the surface of the story, nothing is as it should be. Mary and Joseph are compelled to travel far from home for a census at the worst possible moment, only to arrive in a city unwilling to show them welcome. There is no room at the inn, only the shelter of a stable. There is no midwife to guide Mary through the hardship of birth, no brothers for Joseph to lean on. Their situation is fraught with uncertainty, physically vulnerable, anxious, away from home, and having a baby. And yet, even in the midst of this, the Holy Family makes their way with strength and love, perseverance and joy. Joseph is steadfast. He stays by Mary's side. Mary has no blanket for her baby. Nonetheless, she wraps him snugly from fragments of cloth she's managed to scrounge. In tenderness and care, she makes a home for him in the manger amongst the oxen and the sheep. It isn't something she would choose, but she uses what she has. In the fields outside of town, the brightest angel of the Lord appears, not to the pious or the powerful, but to grungy shepherds working the night shift. It is to the ordinary, the lonely, the forgotten, that the good news, the peace and glory of God is proclaimed. Throngs of angels fill the sky with alleluias and light above a dusty range. It is into this juxtaposition of beauty and difficulty, gift and burden, that the Lord of love is born. It is in this melting pot of love and fear, poverty and faith, vulnerability, and disruption, that the Word became flesh and lived among us. God, in the birth of Jesus, enters into all of that, all that it means to be fragile and human, all that it means to be alive. In the incarnation, we discover that there is no experience, no circumstance from which God is estranged. God makes God's home there in Bethlehem, under the tyranny of an occupied land, in the chaos of a manger, with farm hands bearing witness. Just as God makes God's home here, in our imperfection, in the unresolved stories of our lives, in the messy amalgamation of all that we are, so that no matter what kind of Christmas it is, hard or magical or a mishmash of both, Emmanuel, God is with us. The love of God came down at Christmas and made a home in all that it means to be a human being, so that no matter where our story takes us, we are never alone. The love of God came down at Christmas so that all we once were, all we failed to be, and all we yearn to become is held forever in the arms of that love. The love of God came down at Christmas, and his love makes something blessed and beautiful from the hodgepodge that is our lives. Even the 12 yats of Christmas, even the bits that don't seem to fit, even, and most profoundly, that which we would not choose. This Christmas, my brothers and sisters, make room for the mishmash. For on this holy night, God has chosen to be born in the midst of all that we are, so that on this and every night we may rejoice, redeemed and made new by the power of his mighty love. Amen.